If this has gone live, then that means that Hillbilly Elegy has come out in theaters. Hopefully I'm still in it. Hopefully I didn't hit the cutting room floor. And I just wanted to talk about what my experience was like in filming that. Now, if you saw the other two videos I put up, I know I talked about my back a lot, and I wanted to address that. It's almost about a month later since the filming, but I wanted to put this out whilst it was still fresh in my mind. Or, well, not put this out, I wanted to record it. Who knows, this is probably coming out next year sometime, because that's when the movie's supposed to be released. I injured my back during a play. I was the title character in a play called Florida Man, and in part of the play, we run through the audience, and the audience was sitting in those like theater chairs, like bolted to the ground, and it wasn't well lit, and I caught my hip on the side of one of those chairs while I was running through the audience and just twisted my whole body, and it really messed me up for the better part of a couple months. So I just wanted to include that because that's what I was going through at the time. I'm mostly healed at this point. That's the reason I was talking about that so much, is because that's what was going on in my life at the time. And I didn't want to slow down production. I didn't want to be a hindrance at all on set. But that's what I was dealing with, is my back was a little fucked up. So that aside, let's talk about what it was like being on set, filming, all that good jazz. I was super excited, man. When I woke up that morning, I got up super early, soaked my back, you saw that, put on far too many lidocaine patches, took an unhealthy amount of Advil, and went to set. And much like every time I go to set, they assume I'm an extra, and they send me to the extras holding pin, and they figure out I'm not an extra, and they have to send me somewhere else. So that happened again. And then they're always so apologetic when that happens. I'm so sorry. You know, who cares? It's fine. It's not like I'm the star of the thing, you know. So I get on set, they make me breakfast, I get changed into my costume. When I go through hair and makeup, now I was taking an advanced acting class at the time, and my last day, at the beginning of the class, we start out talking about, they call it booking, shoots, auditions, and every acting class I've ever done has always done this. And you talk about the things you're auditioning for, the things you booked, projects you're working on, etc., so that everyone has an idea of what's going on in the industry and what everyone else is up to. It's a nice way to, you know, keep yourself, I don't know, motivated because you see everyone else is working or whatever. During all this, the teacher singles me out and she says, Adam. Now, I'm certain she meant well by this, but she was like, Adam, if I've told you 1,000 times, I'll tell you 1,001. I think you book a lot more if you cut off your hair and you shave your beard. I think you'd make a great everyman. And the very next day, I booked this Ron Howard film, and it came with one note. And that note was, Ron loves your hair, don't cut it. And I was like, oh, hold on, I gotta text this chick right away. And she's like, well, what do I know? When I went through hair and makeup, they're like, you look good. Like, I think I had maybe one like zit or ingrown hair starting, and they just went, touch. All right, go off the set, you're good, man. Like, I didn't get any hair and makeup at all. They were like, he's fine, send him on in. Ron loved the way he looked. That's why he's here. I had like no makeup. In fact, the only thing hair and makeup really did was try to stop me from sweating the whole time. So I go to set. If you've seen the movie and I'm still in it, I am the sole employee in a Radio Shack. And when we get there, they've made a whole Radio Shack. Inside, outside, the whole nine. And they take me right next door to this studio it's like a gallery of photos of, I forget the name of the band. It's not the Doobie Brothers, but one of those, you know. Anyway, it was in Macon, Georgia, and it's this band that's famous for being from Macon, Georgia. And I'm blanking on their name, and there's probably people screaming in the comments, oh, how dare you forget this. Anyway, if you remember what it is, you know, they got a museum dedicated to them and everything. Allman Brothers, that's what it is. Allman Brothers. Whew. Someone's having a bad day. All right, well, I get the set. We're in this gallery. There's like one chair that has like a generic name on it, which is me. It says like actor or co-star, whatever it says. And then next to it is the name of the kid. And then the chair next to that is Glenn Close. And the chair next to that is something like Mr. Piffles the Fantastic. And I was like, what's Mr. Piffles the Fantastic? Like, is that what Ron Howard calls himself on set? That's a little pretentious. Are you serious? And they're like, no, that's Glenn Close's dog. He's got like 13,000 followers on Instagram. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool as hell. Because like, the chairs are real high up. If you've ever seen them, the chairs are pretty high up. So I assume it's a little dog. In fact, I know it's a little dog. I've seen pictures of it now. By the time, I was like, must be little. And if it was on the ground, there's no way she'd be able to pet it, and hang out with it unless it was directly in her lap, which you can't do all the time because I'm certain it sheds and you don't want to have dog hair on like every costume she's ever had. When I got to set, or for wardrobe, they told me that Glenn Close was going to be in my scene. She had one line in my scene, and either they changed it or she didn't get out of hair and makeup quickly enough because she was wearing prosthetics and wigs and all sorts of stuff. So they moved her line to like outside or in the next shot in the car or whatever. Anyway, they walked me onto set, and I'm walking past a guy. There's a guy who's my stand-in who just has like a big piece of tape on his chest, has like my name on it basically. And so they're trying to make certain I'm not sweaty. Now, the AC in this place is not working well, so it's sweltering in there. And plus the fact you've got like all these lights and camera equipment. They set up an entire Radio Shack, and they stocked it with real things. The only thing they had in there that wouldn't have existed at the time were HDMI cables, because it's in the 90s. HDMI cables didn't come around till like, 2005 or something. Maybe later than that, like 2008. You're a decade too early for HDMI cables. At any rate, no one's going to see them on screen probably. When I walk in, I'm just amazed that they have this entire Radio Shack set up. And they've got stuff, like, it's packed with real Radio Shack stuff. Like, they've got those banks that are like the little yellow robots. You put the coin on his tray, and you hit it down. He like eats the coin. I had one of those. Well, my brother did, but we had one. They had like the real Radio Shack remote control cars and stuff like in there, and I was just like, man, you guys went through some trouble to stock this place. Like, I'm looking around going, wow, look at all this stuff. I don't see Ron, and then Ron pops up from behind the counter, and I have this moment of like, whoo, holy crap, that's Ron Howard right there. And it lasts for maybe half a second, because Ron's been in the business his entire life, and one of the things the wardrobe ladies told me is he's got a very calming voice. Like, even when they hear him talking down the hall, it just calms everybody down. And he just immediately walked up, shook my hand, and was like, hey man, we're just gonna shoot this real quick. We're gonna have you stocking the shelves here, and maybe writing some stuff down here, and then we're gonna bring the kid in. We're gonna do it from his angle. And that was a little odd. The kid that was in the scene, I looked him up. He's from like Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and he was good, man. He clearly knew that Ron Howard was a big deal, because he was trying to like win favor with him, or not suck up, but he clearly wanted his approval. And but I don't think he truly knew who Ron Howard was, because at one point during the filming he called him Rob, and Ron very politely was like, actually it's Ron. And you could see on the kid's face there's like half a second of like, oh, I messed up. And I wanted to be like, dude, don't even worry about it, man. I know you're gonna be beating yourself up over this for probably the next decade, but we've all been there, man. We've all had that moment where we just stuck our foot in our own mouth, and like, dude, don't don't even worry about it, you know? That stuff happens. And he's like 12 or something. Like, he's probably never seen, Apollo 13 or, you know, any Ron Howard movie. He's got no idea, nor should he. Dude, if you watch this, if you're still beating yourself up over it, don't. But it was... it's pretty funny to watch, man. Only because I know I've been there. I know I've done some stupid stuff like that. Even if it was just like a slip of the tongue. I know I've been there, man. You did a great job, dude. So, you're there for a reason. So, yeah, man, shooting went well. Ron gave me a couple of notes. Like, he told me to slow down a couple of times. Overall, I think it went really well. I made one rookie mistake in the filming. You're not supposed to ever mime anything. And then when I was the only one in the room, like, I'm supposed to snatch this calculator out of this kid's hand, and I'm the only one in the room, and we go through the whole scene, and I just mime, like, snatching the calculator and Ron was like, don't mime it, we'll shoot it from the other side. And that made me feel like, messed that up. But it's like, I've never shot something where I'm the only, like, I'm supposed to be doing something with someone else and they're not even in the room. So that was interesting. The camera they used was amazing. I want to say it was a Sony of some sort. I'd never seen anything like it before. The guy who was filming had just like the lens and what must have been the sensor hooked to one thing, and he's holding it, and there was like a bunch of cables the size of a fire hose coming out that went over his shoulder, and it went to another guy, and it went over that guy's shoulder, and on his back was the body of the camera, like a backpack, and it connected to where the lens should be. And they did that so they could, like, squeeze into, like, close up, like, have the camera, like, right up against the window kind of thing. I'm certain it'll make sense when we get to see the scene, but basically it was a small place and they're running out. The interesting thing, though, the entire front of the store was glass. So they've got, out front, there's a sidewalk, and then there's a one-way road going this way, and then a long, like, field with, like, picnic tables and stuff, park benches and so forth. There's a park, and then on the other side is a one-way road going the other way, and then some parked cars on another sidewalk. On all of that, they had cars driving this way, cars driving that way, people walking on all the sidewalks, sitting and walking around in the park. And each time they said cut, it was like the Truman Show, where you just saw, like, cars backing up down the street and, like, people walking the other way and, like, resetting. That was really interesting to me to watch, especially because I'm like, they have no idea what's happening in this scene. Like, they're not seeing it, they're not hearing it. All of it is just, they're just out in their own little world, which was truly amazing to me. The last take we did, Ron, when he was talking to the kid, he was like, the kid is obviously the focus of the scene. And he's like, hey man, maybe say this a little different, say something else. What would you normally say? And I asked him, I was like, hey man, you want me to say anything different? He's like, what would you say? I'm like, well, because like the line was something like, take it out. I'm like, I never asked him to give me the calculator. Like, I would say, give me the calculator, kid. And he's like, all right, yeah, do that. And he's like, you know what, ramp it up a bit, get angry with the kid. I'm like, all right. And I let this kid have it. And afterwards, Ron was like, hell yeah, circle it. That's our one. Yeah, you crushed that, dude. And he looks at the kid and goes, would you rather have your grandma yelling at you than this guy? Like, holy crap, that was great. That made me feel good. So, I mean, I assume that's the one that's probably going to make it into the movie, because Ron seemed to love it. Assuming they even keep the scene. Who knows? Like, they might even delete the whole scene. That's the crazy thing about this stuff. You never know. Like, the whole movie could come out and you just not even have that part of the scene, or that part of the movie in it. Afterwards, this is the mistake I did. I had my Rob Howard moment. I went there and I intended to not ask anyone for a photo because I didn't want to be that guy. But I don't know, man. You spend 5 or 6 hours in a room with someone, you feel like, wouldn't be so bad. We're all sitting in the air-conditioned room waiting for them to reset or move to the next scene. Ron's sitting with a little kid talking to him about the next scene. And I walk up to Ron's assistant. They've already taken off my name tag and like my microphone and everything. And I asked his assistant, and I'm like, hey man, is it all right if I get a photo with Ron? Like, if it's not, don't worry about it. I totally get it. And he was like, no, it's okay. And he walks outside and he says something into his little his headset thing. And next thing I know, my handler is walking like, hey, we got a car ready for you, coming out. And I'm like, all right, cool. And I walk out, and I assume that the guy was like, hey man, we need to get this guy out of here. He's asking for a photo with Ron. If that's the case, I totally get it. Like, that guy's time is very valuable. You know, I ended up, we're all staying in the same place. We're all staying in the Marriott. Like, I still have my Marriott parking decal in the car from when I stayed there. I don't know why it's still there or why I just threw it back up there again. But at any rate, we're all staying at the same place. And as I was walking back up to my room after having dinner one night, Ron's assistant was coming back down. Like, the elevator opened and it's him. And I was like, hey man, I'm sorry if I was out of line for asking for a photo. I get it, that dude's time is, you know, really valuable. I wasn't trying to be about it. He's like, no. He's like, in fact, if you'd have stayed another 5 or 10 minutes, you could have gotten the photo. And I don't know if he was just saying that to save face or whatever. He told me that he liked that I asked him instead of asking Ron, that most people ask Ron. But I mean, I didn't want to interrupt him. The guy was in the middle of talking to the kid. You know, that's far more important than me having a photo. So I didn't get a photo with him, and that's perfectly fine. There you are. Right after you had your Rob moment, I had my own kid. So if you're watching this, don't even worry about it, man. And good for you for booking that. Like, I mean, that's huge. So keep it up, man. Hopefully the movie comes out and that part of the movie looks awesome. I had a blast shooting it. It felt validating to get booked in a Ron Howard film. I remember having a meeting with an agency, a big agency in Central Florida, and they kicked me out of the meeting, and the agent told me, she's like, listen, you look too different, you're too weird, you're never going to work in this industry. You know, just get the fuck out of my office. And it was a 90-minute ride home. It was 90 minutes each way, 3 hours out of my day to go down and meet with this agency. And they told me I'm never going to work in this industry. And here I am, however many years later, and I got to work on the set of a Ron Howard movie. I remember the years of, like, I'd go months without getting even an audition, and now I'm auditioning all the time. You know, it's odd if a week goes by and I'm not auditioning. You know, I got an agent in Atlanta now, and I'm working on some big things, you know, like the Ron Howard film, The Gifted. I did a movie with Big Boy. Done a bunch of cool stuff, and it's like, it's interesting to see how far I've come and how far I have yet to go. Who knows? By the time this airs, surely I've booked a couple other cool things. I guess what I'm trying to say, don't let someone who is so narrow-minded and doesn't see your worth, don't let them assess your value and make up your mind for what you think you're worth. Like, that just made me work harder. Never work in this industry, she said. You were wrong. You were so wrong. At any rate, I hope you guys liked that. I hope you guys dug the movie. I can't wait to see it. I'm not going to be able to see... I'm in 2019. You're watching this in 2020. Like, the movie's... I got to wait a year. I did find out I have a wrap gift. I've never had a wrap gift before. So they mailed a wrap gift to me to my Atlanta address. So I got to get that. I'll make another video showing what that is. But this has been one hell of a roller coaster ride, and it's just the beginning. This is just the first dip. So, alright, like the video, subscribe, whatever. I'll catch you guys later.